and understand what these grooming gangs are?
I think the member is in danger of misleading. I've read the transcript of the January meeting, and indeed the transcript of the meeting given where AC Matt Twist spoke, and both of us said the same thing, which is the issue in London is there are no reported cases or indication of those sorts of grooming gangs. We do have a concern in relation to county lines and the exploitation of young people to do with county lines. That was confirmed by AC Twist at the PCC in January, and indeed I know Deputy Commissioner Jukes spoke yesterday to the committee as well. So in short, to repeat what AC Twist, Deputy Commissioner Jukes and I have said, no reported cases, but no complacency from that police either.
Okay, but some will have seen the video when you constantly asked me what I meant by a grooming gang, and that's been seen by well over 1 million people. Would you still say that if you look at some of your senior politicians, they say that anybody asking for a national inquiry are on a right-wing bandwagon? Would you agree with that?
Well, I think there has been a national inquiry by Professor Jay, and I think the concern is that the recommendations she made weren't acted upon. The good news is this government is going to act upon all those recommendations from Professor Jay. Additionally, this government asked Baroness Dame Louise Casey to look into this matter. She's made a recommendation last week, and I think the government's right to accept the recommendations. By the way, I accepted all Louise Casey's recommendations when it came to police reform. Some of this Assembly didn't.
I'd leave it at that, thank you.
So I've seen Assembly Member Giorgio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Mayor, I hope you and your family are keeping well. On the point of the Baroness' new national inquiry that is to begin soon, there's been reports that you have tried to lobby members of Parliament, ministers, secretaries of state, or potentially the Prime Minister himself to avoid a national inquiry. Just to clear this up now, is that the case?
That isn't the case.
Thank you for confirming, Mr. Mayor.
On the poorest communities in London.
Can you clarify?
So, for instance, it's the poorest communities in London that suffer the most violence. As you've heard from the Deputy Commissioner, much of the violence in London is generated by drug activity. So aren't you concerned that a relaxing of drug law or decriminalisation, to use your term, would lead to a massive impact in that community?
I think that the recommendations actually say that the change wouldn't. It's about possession. It's about a small measure of possession of natural cannabis changing class. It's not about decriminalising the supply of or the dealing of cannabis. It doesn't suggest.
I said about the use, and let me be more specific. You don't seem to understand. In those poorer communities, they suffer more from crime and drug use. Are you not concerned that a decriminalisation of natural cannabis will not have a disproportionate negative effect on those communities, i.e. they will use more drugs and more drugs will be supplied to that community, and with that supply will come violence, and with that use of more drugs will come higher levels of psychosis. Are you not concerned about that?
From the report, it actually shows that the decriminalisation has had using international comparators, so that as a caveat, it shows that there has been no marked increase. There's people who are not currently using cannabis tend to take up it because of the change in legislation. And as I previously said, I think that the recommendations are helpful in focusing on our efforts on harm reduction and making sure that we have the right services around education and drug support, but also that the police can be able to focus on those suppliers and those dealers of drugs to reduce the exact harm that you're concerned about.
For me, they're two separate things, the users and the suppliers. And there's no evidence internationally that legalising decriminalising, to use your term, leads to less criminal activities. I don't know if you've ever met a criminal gang. They're not concerned what we're talking about in this room. What they're concerned about is users. And if this in any way increases the size of their market, they will respond to that in kind. They'll supply more drugs. They'll supply more violence with those drugs. And you truly believe that changing the law in this way will have no impact, it will have no upward swing on the amount of people use drugs, despite the fact that many other international studies have shown that decriminalising leads to greater use. There's a study carried out in this country by one of the think tanks where over 1 million young people said, yes, if it was legal, they would try it. Are you not concerned that we are taking a risk for these poor communities? You say that the Met said there was no gangs to look at, but Alexis J was surprised by that and thought that the Met needed to do more work. I just put that in a slight balance. I asked you the question, you weren't in favour of a national inquiry, the Prime Minister wasn't in favour of a national inquiry. In fact, the Prime Minister said people who are somehow far right, I think is the term he used. I was in favour of a national inquiry and I certainly am not far right, so this demonstrates how he might be wrong. But my question to you, Mr Mayor, what has changed? What has changed to persuade you, and if you can answer on behalf of the Prime Minister, I'd appreciate that, to now accept the need for a national inquiry?
Well, Chair, allow me to answer the various points raised from the member in his question. The first point is, I've been quite clear that there are no reported cases of the sort of grooming we are talking about, but the Met aren't complacent and they are vigilant and they will look at whatever help they need to give the public inquiry. The second point I would make is he's never asked me about my views on a public inquiry. So to put words in my mouth, saying I'm against a public inquiry is what I call misinformation, disinformation and a lie. And
so you were in favour of a public inquiry?
Can the member point to an example where he's asked me about public inquiry and I've dissuaded from that?
Well, you don't need me specifically to ask you. Anybody in the room could ask you. You could ask public. You were in favour of a public inquiry. Is that what you're telling me?
There has been a national inquiry. There has been a national inquiry.
No, this inquiry we're talking about now, you were in favour of that. Is that what you're suggesting? Because if you are saying that, I will stand corrected.
Well, the member, let's be quite clear. The member said, I've been against the public inquiry, and what's the reason for my U-turn? That's what the member is saying. I'm asking him to point out where I've said I'm against a public inquiry.
And I'm asking you to point out where you said you were in favour of a public inquiry. Well, yeah, I think you laugh and you gesticulate. If you can say that, I quite happily will take it back. But you've never publicly said you were in favour of this national public inquiry.
Let's deal with the evidence and the facts.
You obfuscated. We know that. Answer. Tell me. Show me.
There has been a national inquiry. Professor Alexis J had a national inquiry. She made recommendations, which the Conservative government ignored. Not one of her recommendations did they follow through on. Where was Lord Bailey jumping up and down saying to the Conservative government, why aren't you implementing the recommendations? Where was he?
Actually, I was.
Show me.
Let's talk about you. This is no. When did you say you were in favour of this public inquiry? You obfuscated then. You're doing it now. And look, I already told you. If I'm telling people something that you have done incorrectly, if I'm incorrect, I will absolutely take it back and apologise. You just demonstrate to me when you showed support from a public inquiry. Job done.
So Lord Bailey is now claiming, let's be quite clear, Lord Bailey is claiming he publicly criticised the Conservative government for not acting.
No, Lord Bailey is asking you to answer the question. Don't obfuscate by making it about me, right? When were you in favour of this national inquiry like you said you are? Chair, he knows I'm under time pressure and I'm going to have to leave it there because of time pressure. But you know you didn't do that.
It's clearly not that serious if he's going to give it up already. It's either a serious issue he wants to talk about it or he doesn't. He doesn't want to talk about it.
Let's move on unless there's